Could a planet have once existed between Mars and Jupiter in the orbit now occupied by the asteroid belt of our solar system? NASA has remained suspiciously silent about this possibility until about a decade ago, when one of its scientists spoke out about a hypothetical planet via an exploding planet hypothesis was also offered by Alan Alford at Leeds International UFO Conference. The asteroid belt comes across as a mystery that will never be unraveled, but the legacy of knowledge concerning this topic is richer than one might expect, as you will see. To start with, the two main names by which a planetary body that orbited between Mars and Jupiter and that exploded are Maldek and Tiamat. Tiamat is mentioned in Genesis as Tim, translated as the watery deep. The creation story of Genesis 1 starts with, "In the beginning God created the heaven and the earth, and now the earth was total chaos, and darkness covered the deep." A scholar by the name of Gunkel suggested the watery deep was the same as the Babylonian mythological Tiamat that is slain by Marduk. The sense of the darkness covered the deep then becomes that darkness covered Tiamat. In the 12th planet, Zecharia Sitchin also interprets that. On the basis of Sumerian inscriptions as well as Babylonian mythology, the Marduk that the Sumerians called Nibiru was a planet that caused the destruction of Tiamat. Nibiru was a dwelling for the Anunnaki. This name is mentioned in a Sumerian story that is regarded as a parallel to that of the Tower of Babel in the Genesis account. In the Enuma Elish, it is said that some gods, called the Anunnaki, built the lofty ziggurat of the Apsu. The mystery concerning the fact that Marduk is represented as slaying the dragon Tiamat will be resolved here. There are conflicting theories as to the matter of the date when the planet Maldek could have been destroyed. Some people have proposed that the accident occurred 18 million years ago. Whether right or wrong, it seems that this is a speculation on the basis of a statement by the theosopher H.P. Blavatsky in her secret doctrine that the Silent Watcher, Lord Sanat Kumara, was assigned to direct the occult evolution of mankind, and came to Earth from Venus 18 million years ago. Michael Tsarian, the author of Atlantis, Alien Visitation, and Genetic Manipulation, is at variance with this viewpoint as he states that the doomed planet was obliterated much more recently, approximately 50,000 years ago. Tsarian expounds the idea that extraterrestrials with space-traveling capabilities were attracted to the solar system by the conflagration that destroyed Maldek and colonized Earth. However, a proposition entailing the incarnation of some souls from Maldek upon Earth, rather than attracting space aliens, can be found in Fallen Angels Among Us. What You Need to Know, by Elizabeth C. Prophet, a messenger of the Great White Brotherhood. She explains that the laggards of Maldek were allowed to incarnate upon Earth after a cataclysm occurred due to some worrying hordes of aliens' misuse of atomic energy. The entities that had blown up their home world had been influenced by Luciferian fallen angels who conspire to seduce starseeds all over the galaxy, to lead them astray, and live off their light for an ultimate purpose of control. Mrs. Prophet does not mention a date for the destruction of Maldek, but she explains that a third of its life waves were allowed to incarnate upon Earth at the time the high priests of Lemuria had already received the evil influence of the Luciferian philosophy. They had acquired a sense of superiority over the indigenous people of Earth, as well as spiritual pride. The solar system had been raided by dark entities about which a lot has been revealed by contactees and by the method of channeling in more recent times. To be noted is the fact that the incarnation of the souls of Maldek may not have taken place straight after the destruction of their home world, as they could have remained in a passive state in Pralaya, waiting for an appropriate time to embody. Hence the conflagration of Maldek could have occurred millions of years ago, and the laggard's incarnation only a few thousand years ago. The theories concerning the arrival of the souls of Maldek upon Earth are therefore not so controversial to NASA's assumption that the solar system once had an extra Earth-like planet. that they named Planet V millions of years ago. Ceres dating for the obliteration of Maldek does not match the notions transmitted concerning the reincarnation of the souls of the renegades of Maldek upon Earth as in Pleiadian perspectives on human evolution. A more Aquanians dating for the arrival of these souls from Maldek is further back in 145,500 BC. But her information ties in with fallen angels among us. She says they were born to Pleiadian parents in 4 locations including Lemuria, and that it was a time when some Pleiadians came to Earth to parent souls. Before doing so they downgraded themselves. As Pleiadians exist upon a higher realm than the 4th and 3rd dimensions, this means that they lowered the vibration of their form and even shrank their consciousness to enter into the physical reality that actually is holographic. These first Lemurians were therefore self-created. This information channeled through Kuan Yin is supported by the fact that Manetho, a high priest in the Temple of Heliopolis in the 3rd century BC, claimed that the priests of Egypt had kept effigies of their human kings and of their preceding divine rulers who were born without the intervention of women. These statues, 345 in number, were enormous and in wood, and to each one was attached a name and history. This fact has been preserved by the commentators of Manetho's History of Egypt, which is lost. He had written volumes on the matter of the gods and demigods who ruled before mortal kings. These gods would have belonged to a divine dynasty and a 3rd race that preceded the Atlanteans. What EC Prophet makes clear is that an evolution already existed upon Earth before the coming of the laggards of Maldek, as the people of Lemuria allowed them to incarnate as their children to provide them with a body. So the scenario is not one in which the whole of mankind came from Maldek. Only a 1/3 of the original souls of Maldek were allowed to continue evolving upon Earth. As to the matter of when the souls of Maldek arrived upon Earth, a transmission from Archangel Michael offers confirmation that it was during the Lemurian Age. But it was given to a former generation of light workers through Geraldine Innocenti in 1953. Archangel Michael stated that the priests in the temple were notified that the laggards of the other system were to be given habitation on the Earth and were told to prepare to protect the people from their effluvia. Excursus Innocenti was the messenger of the organization called the Bridge of Freedom, founded after the I Am activity of Guy Ballard. On the day Innocenti made her transition, in June 1961, the Master El Moria contacted E.C. Wolf to tell her she was needed to train under Mark Prophet. She received the mantle of Messenger of the Great White Brotherhood. In 1963, Mark and Elizabeth were married. These contacts with the local spiritual hierarchy can be traced back to Blavatsky and the ageless wisdom that the Master Dwalko, known as the Tibetan, communicated through Alice Bailey. Communication was already achieved in those days through a technique practically effortless for Bailey. A prophecy made to Blavatsky that more teachings would be communicated in the last quarter of the 20th century crystallized as the Master Kuthumi's and Dwalko's teachings on the human aura through the messenger E.C. Prophet. This was just a beginning in the history of the Ascended Master's activities. It is almost impossible to count their messages and the amount of channels that now exist in the world. In Fallen Angels Among Us, the scenario is one in which the people of Lemuria volunteered to parent 1/3 of the souls of Maldek. Then the laggards took control, because having evolved for millions of years prior to the destruction of their world, they were more crafty, and, by comparison, the Lemurians were inexperienced in the matter world. Although they were very advanced in matters of science and technology, and were space travelers, they were laggards from an ancient evolution that had been unable to progress spiritually, and had adopted a materialist philosophy. They started incarnating when the Lemurian civilization was beginning to decline. The influence of the souls of Maldek was felt at the dawn of the Atlantean Age. In Genesis they are symbolically represented by Cain, who is the first person in the Old Testament to slaughter a fellow being, his own brother Abel. Adam and Eve's expulsion from paradise represents the period of decline from the Lemurian Golden Age. Cain rose up in anger against his brother Abel and slew him. Abel represents the Lemurians, though the latter were a father nation as indicated by Ab meaning father and El means of an angelic nature. Cain's murder symbolizes an attack of the Atlanteans upon the Lemurians. It was expected the laggards would learn from the Lemurians who were evolving upon a spiritual path. However, the unexpected happened, and it was a tragedy, as all hell broke loose. It culminated with an accident in cosmic evolution, the downfall of the Atlantean civilization, as well as the great karmic cataclysms that engulfed Poseidon, the last island of Atlantis. The forces of light and darkness were arrayed against each other and spiritual evolution came to a standstill until karma could be adjusted. The local spiritual hierarchy made plans to restore the situation, but restrictions had to be imposed upon mankind to avoid a repetition of the premature misuse of psychic powers by the Lemurians' progeny. Hence, man had to incarnate with a lack of integration with his celestial counterpart. This reduction in the spectrum of consciousness had the unhappy consequence of a shortening of man's longevity, but it could be reversed by the use of spiritual exercises and prayer. Earth was made host to the evil of Maldek's ghost. Born with a mind to control, dark souls led man to his fall. According to E.C. Prophet, the Cainites were souls from Maldek that had millions of years more experience in the matter world than the starseeds who had populated Earth in the first place and were still innocent. The souls of Maldek had not developed an interest in the spiritual path and were not interested in taking part in the divine cosmic evolution that was the objective of descending into matter. They recreated their ancient civilization, beginning with the brass and iron ages, and reinvented their sciences. Incarnated as the Atlanteans, these renegades rediscovered a technique to split the atom, to genetically engineer life, create ultrasonic waves, and space travel. They were able to manipulate the DNA and used their knowledge to evil designs of control. They worked their way into positions of power in the Atlantean society. They were scientifically deluded. They built the Atlantean Empire and became a threat to other nations. As the elite of modern times, the laggards outsmarted the naive population and corrupted the world. Then, to make the matter worse, in league with the rebellious Luciferians, fallen ones, and Anunnaki, the laggards cooperated with the sabotage of the divine plan of spiritual evolution to get their way and to alter the divine timeline of evolution. For this purpose they led the mass of the more innocent humanity astray to prevent it from acquiring knowledge and progress upon the spiritual path. In our era, with their military mind, they recreated their machines of war. They desired only to accumulate wealth. Though they are called Illuminati, which means enlightened, they are far from being so. They have been given a second chance, but their time is up. We have reached the prophetical end of time, the deadline they were allocated to convert themselves to virtues. The souls of mankind appeared entrapped in never-ending cycles of karmic retributions until a window of opportunity would present itself. It turns out this was not by chance but destiny. Indeed, according to Sheldon Idle, the Anunnaki tampered with man's DNA 13,000 years ago. But the spiritual authorities made plans to take advantage of the ascension of the whole solar system as it would pass through a photon belt. As one of the effects of the latter would be a modification of mankind's DNA. This would restore mankind to full consciousness. In a message he conveyed through the messenger E.C. Prophet, in 1979, Archangel Gabriel states that the records of the destruction of the planet Maldek are present in the etheric scrolls of the Divine Mother. They show that psychotronic weapons irradiating psychic energies were used upon the people of Maldek to alter their emotions, to produce a distortion in their mind and memory. as well as to invert the polarity of all nature. This tempering of the energies of life and of the balance of yin and yang in man and nature resulted with self-destruction. It caused a pollution and deceleration in consciousness, as well as a densification of the planet. It was the modus operandi of some dark alien forces. Archangel Gabriel has explained that in a time before Maldek was destroyed, certain dark forces created artificial planets and satellites, as well as moons that were placed around legitimate planets. They built space stations with devices generating waves with the capability to control minds. All of this was done by a particular group of aliens, the reptilians, or Orionites, who were set on opposing the divine plan of evolution. The souls of Maldek had actually built a civilization upon Mars before they were transferred to Maldek. According to Amora Kuan Yin, a group of Pleiadians, who volunteered for the experiment in matter, originally stepped down their vibrations to experience the third dimension as human beings. First on Venus, then Mars, where they met an end due to an invasion by some misled aliens who plotted to take over the solar system. They opened a giant hole in Mars' atmosphere by the use of detonations and the power of a pyramid. For the construction of the latter, they enslaved the Martians. These alien invaders also infiltrated Atlantis and used black magic. As to the reason that Maldek exploded, according to Kuan Yin, the being who controlled Maldek created a shield that the higher dimensional beings of light from the Pleiades and Ceres could not break through. Maldek was eventually thrown out of orbit, its atmosphere was ignited and it exploded. This was at the time when the forces of Orion were at war with the forces of the light, or galactic center. A theory according to which our Cro-Magnon ancestors were genetically enhanced by the introduction of Anunnaki DNA seems to be enjoying popularity in alternative circles and the followers of the ancient astronauts theory, but it should be pointed out that the Star Elders, those cosmic beings who are now referred to as our galactic family, tell us through their channels that the Anunnaki tampered with mankind's DNA after raiding the Earth. The genetic makeup of one of our ancestors was reduced, not enhanced, and it is the reason that we are being restored to full consciousness through the process of ascension. In Bringers of the Dawn, Barbara Marciniak channels a Pleiadian message disclosing the fact that some part human and part reptile beings came to Earth and rearranged the human DNA about 300,000 years ago, because they did not wish human beings to know they had taken over the Earth following a conflict with the forces of the light, and because cosmic law permitted it. What was done 13,000 years ago was only a phase in a long history of alien domination during which the raiders purposely created emotional trauma in mankind as a source of food. The Anunnaki have been the world management team, as the Pleiadians say. The Pleiadians compare the human being to a biological library that has been deactivated because mankind's DNA has been tampered with. It is its destiny to recover 12 strands of DNA and develop more chakras, which will be connections for information to be received from the solar system, the galaxy, and a center in the universe. The DNA holds the history of the universe and the plan. The Pleiadians explain why this is the time for an evolutionary leap. The instructions communicated by the High Council of Ceres through Patricia Corey, and published in Atlantis Rising, The Struggle of Darkness and Light, also alert us to the fact that the alien forces that were involved with the destruction of Atlantis were Anunnaki, advanced engineers. They wove an electromagnetic net, matrix, or grid, around Mother Earth so tightly that she experienced difficulty in absorbing the light of Prime Creator. The comment that has come through Dr. Catherine May, Sid, on April 13, 2013, about the same event, is that Mother Earth was seriously wounded and barely managed to maintain herself as a spinning planet when the Atlanteans converted a Lemurian generator to use it as a weapon. Some reptilians and Greys invaded Earth at that time. Then about 13,000 years ago, they tampered with mankind's DNA and transformed it from its original crystalline-based structure down to a carbon-based one with only 2 strands. This was done with the objective of reducing humanity's mind power and weakening it. It caused a spiraling downward from the etheric planes into a lower density. As a result of the contact that certain individuals have with the cosmic beings of the Galactic Federation of Light, or the prodigious method of human channeling, much enlightening knowledge has come to the fore in recent years. In the archives handed down by the method of human channeling, Nibiru supposedly is a space wanderer with an elliptical orbit around 2 suns, one of which our sun, the other a sun of the Sirius star system. There also are many contactees, and one among them, Sheldon Neidl, mentions in his work Your First Contact that Maldek is being brought back to life and terraformed. Yet another name for the planet Maldek is Galatea, as Archangel Michael has used this name to refer to Earth Gaia's twin flame on light through Linda Dillon, alluding to the fact that Galatea was being reconstructed, and that Gaia will be reunited with her twin flame. As Neidl indicates that Maldek is being rebuilt, I reflected that Maldek and Galatea were the same. Confirmation that Galatea is another name for Maldek then came from Zora of Inner Earth's channeling through Zariah, as he stated 1 week or so later, that Maldek is indeed Earth's twin flame. And now, to explain the reason for the depiction of the slaying of the dragon Tiamat by Marduk in Babylonian mythology, we have to draw from Sheldon Neidl, as he has disclosed the ancient fact that the reptilians from Orion, who had previously been expulsed from the solar system, returned about 1 million years ago. A first colony established by fully conscious human beings from Vega in the Lyra constellation had flourished for 1 million years by the time these reptilians came back and only found a small colony of reptilians on Maldek. It was a large world with 5 moons, one of which was artificial and was later placed in orbit of the Earth. Orion formed an alliance with the reptilians of Maldek, and together they attacked the solar system as well as other star nations, and the very first Earth colony was decimated. Some 100,000 years later many star nations retaliated in a war that is sometimes referred to as the Orion Wars, using Nibiru because it was a battle planet. Nibiru was originally used by the Galactic Federation of Light to regain dominion from the reptilians before Lemuria, as it was a battle station and an ultimate weapon. This casts light on the legend of Marduk Nibiru slaying the dragon Tiamat Maldek. Maldek was the headquarters of the Orion Alliance, hence Marduk slaying a dragon symbolic of the forces of darkness because of the presence of reptilians on Maldek. After Maldek exploded, the artificial moon remained. Then the Galactic Federation established Lemuria as a new colony. According to Neidl, Lemuria coexisted with the old Atlantine kingdom, and some Atlanteans caused Lemuria to sink overnight about 25,000 years ago. The artificial moon, one of the 5 that had orbited Maldek, and that was filled with instruments, as well as with a holographic interior, was recovered and placed in orbit of the Earth during the Atlantine Age, when a base upon the moon permitted the Atlantine forces to control rebellious factions upon Earth. At that time the Earth had 2 moons. So this is the indirect association that is sometimes indicated between Maldek and Luna, or that our moon had with Maldek. The moon was the artificial satellite that originally orbited Maldek. The reason that Earth only has 1 moon today is that about 25,000 years ago, the Atlanteans, who were made up of renegades, caused the other moon that orbited Earth at that time to crash upon the continent of Lemuria, causing it to sink. And we were left with 1 moon. There also was a time when the Anunnaki used Nibiru as a headquarters, then positioned it in an elliptical orbit and ruled over Earth from it for 13,000 years. When speaking through Drive May, Father Mother God sometimes calls fallen angels those dark entities that are reptilian humanoids. On April 3, 2013, Father Mother God said that the dark forces that established a foothold on Earth are a group that spread destructive ideas across the universe. They were particularly opposed to any spiritual connection and even altered their own DNA to disconnect themselves from the divine. According to Mother Father God through Dr. K. May, on May 2nd, a band of light workers, whose higher expression of self are the Elohim and number 144,000, have been working to raise the level of consciousness and the culture of the planet. A plan involving Sanat Kumara, Jesus Sananda, and a commando of volunteers was devised to restore mankind to its divine connection. We are informed that while planet Earth is being stabilized by a multitude of starships from many galaxies, and not just from this universe, as indicated in a transmission channeled by Drive May, we have a period of teaching ahead of us that will reverse the Cabal's ideologies and conspiracies of silence, as well as the psychology that mankind has inherited due to having experienced so many upheavals in its tumultuous past. The Dark Cabal has worked hard to prevent the awakening of mankind, but is present in the grip of a sense of doom. Its leadership has been under an illusion of power and invincibility. Now they know the collapse of their system is about to take place. It is what the Book of Revelation calls the apocalypse. It's the divine shift point. We have seen leaders and heads of states resigning, and some arrests. It's a phase in the shift of governance that, together with a distribution of prosperity funds and Nasara, is a first sign of what is coming. On the basis of the transmission received through Elizabeth Trutwin, NASA has withheld information about their manned flights and the fact that they have been using a system of propulsion technology they have obtained from the negative extraterrestrials called Greys. They have suppressed knowledge about a technology that has permitted astronauts to travel long distances in short periods of time, but that could also represent a global solution for mankind. If this secret technology had been used to mankind's benefit, it could have had the effect of reducing the cost of living and of eradicating poverty all over the world. The fact that benevolent extraterrestrials approached the governments as far back as in the 1940s and 50s with an offer to provide technologies which we now know could replace petroleum and nuclear-based fuel sources, and that it was rejected, is slowly being disclosed. Our benevolent elder brothers and sisters, as they call themselves, will be able to dismantle nuclear power plants and neutralize them. Disclosure about the presence of the galactic superhumans from whom we have inherited our DNA, in contrast with aliens such as the Greys and reptilians, is part of the grandiose groundbreaking revelations we are to expect in times not too far ahead. Concerning our reunion with the Ascended Masters and cosmic beings, also often referred to as our galactic family of light, no dates have been given. But they are expected to override TV channels and cell phones at an appropriate time, in a matter of months, not of years, to announce their presence. Then a period of instruction and healing will start. Archangel Michael also stated that the re-evaluation of various currencies, the first sign that these and Nasara were underway. Ashtar, through Philip, stated that the transformation of our quantum financial system is only waiting for implementation. And the Dark Ones have no more power to prevent this from happening any longer. What is quantum financial system QFS? QFS literal meaning is Quantum Financial System, which is an advanced financial system launched to eradicate the cabal and banksters' monopoly on the monetary system, and for that purpose, a system comprises of artificial intelligence and complex computer programs fully backed by banks is needed. The various phases of this divine plan will culminate with our recovery of full consciousness. It is not so much that heaven is coming to earth, but we are being raised to it. According to Archangel Michael's definition, ascension is leaving behind old paradigms as well as the old ways of the third dimension. Higher consciousness is just love and peace. Higher consciousness is the consciousness of a god or the part of the human mind that is capable of transcending animal instincts. While the concept has ancient roots, dating back to the Bhagavad Gita and Indian days, it was significantly developed in German idealism and is a central notion in contemporary popular spirituality.